other things that I'm not too sure if they're genuine. It's hard to tell. It's hard to tell when someone changes their position about something or someone. I mean, when Vassan Baran got reaccepted into the UNC fold, it was difficult for me to think all of a sudden, where was the work for the two sides to come together? Was there any compromise? Was there anything to justify this decision? Because last I checked, they had irreconcilable differences. They did not necessarily have complementary things to say to one another, and now they want to work together. I mean, it's why, believe it or not, it's not Trump I'm worried about, it is running mate, Vance, who seems to be a man of political expedience, or convenience rather, because he was an anti-Trump guy, and then all of a sudden he is the most Trumpiest Trump after Trump. Now, granted, I don't have a direct stake in the race. I'm not voting in the American election, so I'm not going to necessarily care to keep up with all the ins and outs of the individual positions of the potential vice presidential candidates. They were now both selected, relatively speaking, on either side. But that was one of the things that made me think, maybe this guy, yeah, maybe I don't know if I like this guy. It's not about his policies, but rather the fact that he seems to be one of convenience. What do I need to say for you to vote me in? I don't really have principles. And all too often you kind of see that with politicians sometimes around the world. Europe was friends with Russia, and then they had to kind of figure out how to deal with the reality that slapped them in the face. Russia wants war. We wanted peace through trade. They seemingly don't care. Now what are we going to do? Macron looks like a flip-flopper himself. I mean, how could you lead Europe when your own country doesn't seem to be all on board following your lead? And now the question is, to what extent do we, the public, look out for these things? Because it's one thing, like I said, to not like the ideas of a politician. But I would argue that a politician that stands for whatever is convenient before him at the time is a much bigger problem, because you don't know at what point that politician will switch away from what you believe in and go counter, do the opposite to what you want. They could make promises today and they could switch it up on you once they get into office. That's not necessarily something that is new. So to what extent do we see that here in Trinidad? To some extent, our politicians are quite consistent, particularly when it comes to not cooperating with the other side. But then now, what do we make of those who, they're dissidents? They want to rebel against the status quo. What do we make of that? Are they flip-flopping? Or have they done enough to justify their change of thought? We have dissidents now in the UNC. Wonder if we'll ever see it in PNM. Probably not. That culture is way too much, we're winning the election by any means necessary. We're not going to get in our own way. Then again, when the competition for the post of political leader really gets into high gear, who knows what could happen? But in the meantime, there is some actual interesting conundrums I would like to point out. What am I talking about? Well, Sean Michael Smallhead, this is Talking Point, and let's now start today's Daily Review. Daily Review. Right, so first story, let's just get into some basics quick. Campaign promises coming from the opposition party. So essentially this is coming from the UNC. Opposition leader, Kamala Prasad-Biswas, also political leader of the UNC, has made various promises. And I do wonder though, if some of them might not be that realistic or might not be that useful. First of all, raising the legal age of gambling to 25. I guess you need to be 25 to drive a rental car. I don't really see a problem with this per se. Fine. Increasing the legal age of ganja to 25. I mean, we already can't enforce the legal drinking age. I don't know if you're going to enforce the legal smoking age of ganja. I'm just saying. And I don't know what the practical benefit of it would be, because again, I don't think we do a good enough job enforcing the legal drinking age. So at some point, abuse of alcohol, abuse of marijuana, to me, they're similar enough. Pretty sure you could lose brain cells if you drink too much. And then, you know, it's quite easy to have blackouts incidents and you drink and drive and then somebody wraps around a light pole and gone too soon, right? Heard of that before, seen that before, happens too often, totally preventable, right? So do we actually try to enforce these things? I don't think the criminal justice system has the capacity to enforce this. I would much rather we make it all illegal so we could just blanket get rid of it, or we just make it all legal so we completely disregard it. Either of those two things are probably going to be easier to enforce than trying to have these specific circumstances where it's legal here but not there, and then you need to put more effort into figuring it out. One way, the supply just roams free. The other way, you just automatically know one time, you know, get rid of it. You don't have to put any effort to determine. But there's some other things coming out of it. Monetary rewards for police officers where crime is kept low. I think those who have a bit of knowledge of history and human nature might begin to see the beginnings of what could be an unintended consequence. When you incentivize something, human behavior is to try to maximize the incentive. Not always in the way that's intended. So, and there are many ways that something like that could be abused. It's a slippery slope when implemented poorly. I don't know if there are a lot of places that have anything like this, to be honest. No property tax or increases in water and electricity rates in this dire economic climate. That's the catch-22. And if I have time, I'll get into this down the line. Government don't really have the kind of money that it had when you were necessarily in power, and the cost of things are not the same. So the whole 60 billion to solve all the government problems, so 70 billion coming from, I believe, your chairman, but without an actual plan, because I think our cost of living, not individual cost of living, but just TNT's cost of living, cost of existing, is so out of whack with our revenue. I don't know if you could do this even if you wanted to. And also, if water electricity rates are not in line for what it should be to a reasonable degree, it could cause imbalances in the market, which then also causes some issues. That's kind of what we're seeing with the price of plane tickets. Demand is higher than the operation could potentially support because the price is too low. So now the airline has to support or try to meet a demand that it may not realistically be able to meet, even though it's technically getting subsidized, at least to some degree, to keep the price down. That doesn't necessarily mean that it can operate at a certain operational tempo healthily. But the most interesting one is the criticisms, because of course, as campaign promises are being made, you are leveling criticisms, you are pointing out, this is where the other side has failed, that's why we're going to promise these things to you. So the opposition leader had some interesting things to say about one Gary Griffith. The opposition leader decided to lump him in with part of the government's failure at crime, pointing out to the murder rates in the 3 years, well, 2018 to 2021. So it's 3 years, but I think technically it might appear to span over 4 years. But it's the middle of 2018 to the middle of 2021. But looking at the murder rate of those 4 years, during COVID years it dropped. Before COVID, it was over 500. And pointing out that, in her opinion, the top 3 selections were bypassed to select him. And look at the failure that we had. And I actually forgot about this. Well, I didn't, well, yeah, you know, it just slipped my mind. But during the local government election trail, Gary Griffith was being heralded as the best commissioner the country's ever seen. In fact, Gary himself, I believe, posted a video of Kamala Persad-Bissessar saying that. I myself remember when Jack Warner had his one speech, not only did he take the time to call himself the best national security minister, but he also heaped praise on Gary. He heaped praise on Gary, saying he's the best commissioner. So this is what was said on UNC political platforms for the local government election. Then, you know, sometime later, a few months later, they had the whole thing. Gary said Jerlene John is trying to push him out, yada, yada, yada. And now it seems as though Kamala is going in that direction. The problem is you kind of did infer that the guy was good at his job when he was commissioner. So now to say that he wasn't good at his job, who do I believe? Kamala 2024, Kamala 2023? And it's not that politicians can't change their mind or change their opinion. But, you know, first of all, I would have loved for you to actually justify the statements when you said Gary Griffith was the best commissioner. If you could have given supporting evidence, that would have made that statement stronger. Likewise, give reasoning why the logic of yesterday apparently was wrong because you've changed your mind today. You can change your mind. You can change your mind. You can correct your decision. You can say either I was wrong or I was fooled or I was tricked or whatever. But you have to justify it. Otherwise, what am I supposed to think of all these campaign promises when you've given me an example in the same general time period where you have contradicted yourself? You have changed your mind, your ideology, your sentiments. And now, the other thing is, that I guess this is the unofficial confirmation that a UNC-NTA alliance, I guess, is dead in the water at this point. Because I guess the UNC could go it alone. I guess they want to feel like they're like the PNM. Don't mind that technically they needed a coalition to defeat Patrick Manning at one of his least popular moments in his political career. When he had his own backbencher acting in a way that was not 100% in support of his administration. But now, UNC don't need no help. Philip Alexander has apparently, he's ready to support the UNC even further over this. I find it's very funny. Recommit support for Kamala. I don't know what to make of this. If you're going to change your mind, to be fair, it's not as though she changed her mind so quickly. We kind of saw this take its time. We don't know why. This is where the movie gives us a twist, but it doesn't justify it in any way for it to make sense. So it just seems like a twist for a twist's sake. You're just defying our expectations because you think it's cool, not because you have a legitimate reason to do so. Oh, I'm sure they have a reason to do so. But I would hazard, I guess, they don't necessarily, they may not want to tell us because it's not an actual ideological one that could be used as a selling point. I think it could just be a political one it might be part of the strategy, fine, but it's not necessarily something that's going to give you mileage with the population. But again, if you're going to switch here, then why do I expect you to maintain those promises when, at least with regards to no increases in rates and property tax and so on, I already said government has a shortfall. They have a budget deficit, and then there's a shortfall on top of the budget deficit. You're going to go into office if you win, see this, and somehow magically make money or pay out of thin air to pay all the bills that need to be paid without doing any raises of certain taxes or rates of utilities. I mean, I guess I'll see when I believe it, but then now the question is, who is going to put trust to make those votes? It's only 5 years, right? What could go wrong in 5 years? All right. I'm just trying to squeeze in a couple more stories quick. Oh, I was enjoying that one a little too much. A little too much. Movie Town drama. It's still up in the air. The whole situation in Movie Town is still up in the air, despite the fact that they've gone to court. And from what I understand, according to reports, Movie Town's management company is supposed to be paying the Port of Spain Infrastructure Development Company $3 million while the matter is still up in the air for a final decision. But, while it is still before the court, the judge apparently did two things, one I find interesting and one which leads to an interesting situation. The first thing is, the judge that was hearing the case did not tell the tenants who they should pay to. She said, well, you could pay to Movie Town or you could pay to Posinco. Gosh, it's such a mouthful either way. Who comes up with the key people, the P key? I don't know. You could pay Movie Town, you could pay the government entity, or you could pay the court. Now, to some extent, I don't know, maybe a lawyer could advise them on what will be the best course of action. Although reportedly, a lot of tenants are reported to have no issue continuing to pay Movie Town. But what makes this whole thing interesting, and it's linked to this, but we'll move on to the other part where apparently part of the whole agreement that was reached, or the halfway measure reached, was Movie Town would pay $3 million, but the state company is not supposed to interfere with Trinidad Commercial Development Company Limited. That's the owners of Movie Towns, and their operations. They're not supposed to interfere. That's what the judge said. Meanwhile, apparently, state companies essentially locked Movie Town out of its banquet hall and offices, which I find extremely laughable because I find it hard to believe that the state company is going forward with any sort of court proceedings or arbitration in good faith if essentially you're going to deny the other party use of their property when it hasn't necessarily been determined the legality of your denial of the use of their property. That's why you're in court. Also, let's not forget, and this is where the rental payment issue comes in. We don't have our offices. How are we supposed to pay staff? How are we supposed to collect rent? Meanwhile, let's not forget that POSINCO, the other people, they POSINCO, the Port of Spain Infrastructure Development Company, they try to send letters to say, respond in 2 days. Respond to us in 2 days about this change in ownership that we're trying to push through in a very interesting manner. 2 days? You must respond in 2 days. That's the best part. Because who sets a 2-day deadline to someone in an ambush situation because nobody saw this coming? There was no indicator to the tenants that this was going to happen. So even if they weren't ready for this 2-day deadline, they would have been penalized somehow. Now, my only question to this is, if what this state company is doing is not legal, because I do have to wonder, to what extent are they basically just disobeying a court order? So then now the question is, why hasn't the actual authorities intervened? Because they are essentially a landlord making claims that Movietown is disputing. So they are not necessarily a law enforcement body per se, executing a criminal warrant or something like that. They're acting like a landlord, and Movietown is saying, well, they're acting like a landlord who's acting in bad faith because they want to raise the rent on us arbitrarily, outside of the agreed terms. And essentially, they are bullying us. And right now, just based on the reporting, it's not hard to believe Movietown's side of the situation. But maybe there's things that we don't know, which is why I'll end with asking again, why don't we see the police get involved? Because I do wonder if a court order is essentially being disregarded. How legal is that? I have no idea. And then, to what extent could Movietown basically say there's no legal basis of this? If that is true, call the police on these people for trespassing. Obviously, it might not be as simple as that, but to some extent, right now it seems like it's a he said, she said. And the paper evidence does not seem to suggest that Movietown is wrong, because the facts of the matter has not been disputed that Movietown has presented. And the court generally, seemingly, they have provided Movietown with an injunction to prevent the state company from communicating with the tenants. So, and then in this situation, again, yes, Movietown has to kind of pay some money up front, and then depending on the ruling, they could potentially get it back, maybe, I don't know. But more importantly, then their operations were not supposed to be interfered with, and it's being interfered with. But I do wonder if to some extent the judge's non-committal aspect of who to pay the rent to, because in my mind, if it was a case where, well, we need to determine who legally is supposed to collect this rent, then shouldn't the court just collect it? I mean, right now, Movietown, I believe, is paying for the maintenance and upkeep of the facilities, so that by default, and shouldn't they then collect it? Also, the agreement is with Movietown. So, and the reason why this matters to you, ladies and gentlemen, this is not a case about, oh, rich businessmen having issues with the government, we shouldn't care. If they could do it to him, depending, we don't exactly know what it is they're doing, but right now on the surface it looks bad. And if it could be done like what it appears to be to him, well, it could be done to anybody. It's nice to be nice. Apparently, not everybody got that memo. Okay, let's take a break. When we come back, we welcome the good lady. Stay tuned. This is Talk About on WSN. We'll be right back after this.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378, or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
Transform your home with PCU Plus. From stylish furniture to the latest appliances, we have everything you need to create your perfect space. At PCU Plus, we offer fair prices and affordable financing options that are cheaper than hire purchase agreements. With convenient locations in San Fernando, Tobago, Arima, and our lifestyle showroom in Barataria, you're never far from the best deals. Visit PCU Plus today and discover why we're the top choice for quality furniture and appliances. PCU Plus. Quality you trust, prices you'll love. Visit one of our locations or find us online to start transforming your home today.
Pastor J, I want to get a tattoo.
You really want
to me. Respond to me how you would respond to me.
The first question I'll ask is why?
Controversial taboo topics.
We get so consumed by church, we forget that we have to live the life of being a Christian outside of the Sunday.
Like you say,
services.
we think going to a service makes us a Christian.
Exactly.
Yeah, right. So here we are about to hear the second time Pastor J wanted to take a tattoo.
Would have been late last year and early this year.
Oh gosh.
Hope Unfiltered podcast with Pastor J and Ren.
Join me, Dr. Nalini Kokram, on What's Up Doc, where we discuss all your burning questions concerning health.
Trinidad and Tobago is among one of the highest risk group of patients that develop this form of genetic breast cancer.
What I'd like to take home from a short interview like this, screening. You must screen.
Because it's silent.
It's silent.
Yeah.
And because it's silent, you don't know it's there.
What's Up Doc, every Tuesday and Thursday on WESN, Content Capital.
The newest book is here, Closer to the Church, the debut novel by author and former Mayor Louis Lee Singh. Available at all the Home Store branches, Barataria, West Mall, Shogunas, and C3 San Fernando. Paper-based bookshop 10 Nook Avenue, St. Anne's, WESN 30A Gattaca Street, Woodbrook, Metropolitan Bookshop, Ariapita Avenue, Woodbrook, and all RIK bookstores nationwide. Available online as paperback on Amazon.com and Kindle for e-readers. For more info, call 628-5835 or 389-6504. Also available from author Louis Lee Singh, I Used to Live in Heaven, Letters to My Granddaughters, and Local Government in Trinidad, Conspiracy Against the People.
This is Face of Sports, WESN Content Capital. How you felt about the kiss on the lip?
That's the business. I'm not to do with that.
I find that was distasteful.
The national senior team, whether you like it or not, that is the model for all other teams to follow.
I'm assuming that the regional requirement may be a much stricter requirement.
This is not about Pro League and Super League. This is a league run by the Normalization Committee that I'm responsible for.
Nobody expected FIFA to fund this arrangement.
If we don't get a professional attitude towards this, we are doomed for failure.
You break the balance, trip the leg, control the body.
They ain't gonna stand put forever.
Why you want the Chiefs to lose so? Why you want the Chiefs to lose so?
They already have two. Lamar don't
Why?
have.
You're jealous because you know the Chiefs getting closer to the Patriots. Let's go to the last part.
No,
Let's go to the last part.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. Find the style number on the tag. Step 2. Match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3. Search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
Fan Zone, 2 locations nationwide. Center City Mall, Chaguanas and Movietown, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
And we're back here on Talk About WSN, and we have the good lady herself. She is a former Minister of Finance, an attorney at law, and a legal scholar, and now a constitutional reform recommendation analyst, as she has taken more of a closer look, continued her reading, and we will take somewhat of a deeper dive as we continue conversations. Of course, I'm speaking with good lady herself, Karen Nestishera. Good morning, Karen.
Good morning to you, Sean. Good morning to your listeners. Always here to be here on WSN on a Wednesday, normally. And as I tell you, up to yesterday, somebody says, hey, I see his sister on a show with that Sean guy. So the bottom point I'm making is you do have a big following. The person just happened to make that comment because they were talking to a family member.
Right.
Right? And that's why they said that. But what it does show me, you have a good following. So, yes, you're right. I went back on the Constitutional Reform document and I gave it a deeper dive, as which is what I also told. When you see me scrolling like this, it's because I have one of the advantages that I don't have on another show. That I can't, I'm using my computer to talk to people, but I can use this computer here to find and actually identify the pages that I wanted to specifically mention. So there's a lot of areas, and I just want to go back and say this. I looked at the Wording Committee report. It's a good report. It is a very good report. A lot of their recommendations were not taken on board, but remember, it was done in the early 1970s, and we are more than 50 years ahead.
Right.
So we have to understand things have changed significantly. For example, their report said 35% of the population was employed by the government. And I happened to look at a central bank, usually has somebody write an article. And they had written, I think, sometime very recently, and put it down to about 20%. And they said, but what they did see, though, was a lot of that employment was in the social sector, the URP and the CPEP workers. And they said that on one hand, I'm just saying what they said. They said on one hand, you might think that's a good thing, because they're looking at unemployment levels and so on. He said, but it looks more like, I'm just saying that one could construe it as keeping your voter base rather than assisting. So I did look at it, and I will look at the ones that I think are some of which are easier and some of which, in fairness to the commission, so I hope they won't come after me after this, because some of it I may well deserve it. One of the things they said, they felt that there should judicial independence for certain offices in the Constitution. Among those are the Industrial Court, the Equal Opportunity Tribunal should be included in the Constitution. And I suspect, like in everything, I can't put my head on a block for it, But certainly we know that the sudden ending, although her contract had come to an end, the way it was done, she was abroad when she was told, according to the newspaper report, that is the former...
Industrial Court?
Yeah,
President?
Yes, what's her name? Okay, we're not doing that. Just say the former president. But she was away somewhere when she was given a letter.
I'll get you.
But it wasn't only the way that it was done. Yes, it was the end of her service. But the Industrial Code Act itself says that there are two ways you get there. You get appointed, or you are. There are two ways of becoming the president of the Industrial Code. She was not appointed from the court, High Court, and sent over there.
She being Deborah Thompson
Deborah
Felix.
Thomas, yes, thank you, Deborah Thomas Felix. So she wasn't somebody that the High Court put on loan, if you want to put it that way. So at any time they could call her back. She was fell into the other group, and what there is provision, they clearly didn't think about her, is that anybody who is in the middle of a matter or has begun a matter, that they would stay on until the matter is resolved, and I don't think that was allowed her. So I don't know if that acted as encouragement or a trigger. Similarly with the Equal Opportunities Tribunal, there was a young woman, I believe, who said that she had been unfairly treated, in the sense that she had been, I believe, agreed to her employment, yet she was, perhaps spent a long time waiting on some call from the tribunal and did not get it.
Yes,
right,
the disabled attorney,
yes,
young lady.
Yes, and you would imagine that's the ones who would do the most for people like that.
And more importantly, it's kind of hard for us to take you seriously when you have basically a potential, well, the appearance of discrimination.
And look at the name, and look at the name, Equal Opportunity.
Exactly, that's the point. It's not that I'm saying that that is what happened in the case.
But it appeared
But
so.
the perception is too easy for the common man of the public to look at just, the surface of it and say...
And perception is reality, and the fact of the matter is I don't think one would be wrong, both in either case. But the point is they have made, I don't know if that had anything to do with their making that recommendation, because it's not in Wooding's report, but they have said that they need to be both recognized, those courts, in the Constitution. So that's one thing I saw them mentioning. One of the things they mentioned, which I wouldn't agree with, I don't know what the public thinks about it. I was kind of surprised to see that. They were talking about the different commissions. Wooding Committee spoke about the various commissions, and at the end of the day, they did say, even though the president appoints them, she has to return advice of after consulting with the Prime Minister, the various commissions. So they were saying that we should revert to the position we had with the Police Service Commission, which was, as our current Prime Minister said in the Hansard, and I have quoted it before, he was away at the time when the Prime Minister, by Act 5 of 2016 Act, I think, I have written it down, but anyway, an act when he was not in the country, and he said so too, so I'm not saying that, he said that, and he was shocked to come back to find out that the Prime Minister had given up his right of, now not veto exactly, they might use the word veto, but in the legislation, you have a section called Judicial Legal Service Commission, and there's certain office holders like the Chief State Solicitor, Solicitor General, DPP, Auditor General, I think also, but also Commissioner of Police, where the Judicial Legal Service Commission can, that's one thing that doesn't fall directly under the Prime Minister, it's the commission that does that work. But when they have decided who they think is the best person for the respective positions, they would then send a name to the Prime Minister. And in the case of the Commissioner of Police, this is the Prime Minister, or he wasn't then Prime Minister, he says, in the quiet of his office, when, no one knows, kind of saying, it's not a matter of public discussion, they would submit a name. And if he didn't agree, because the legislation says he has to consent, and if he doesn't consent, he sends it back and they have to bring somebody back. So what they're saying, I don't find their reasoning very solid about saying that we should go back to the old system effectively of allowing, in the case of the Police Service Commission, for the Prime Minister to have the power of veto, which was the case prior to that change that was made, I believe, when the gentleman was aboard, our current Prime Minister. I don't think the rationale stands up to much scrutiny. Instead, it adds a lot of layers of unnecessary, I don't know if they use the word uncertainty, but they certainly put an argument, in my respectful opinion, that was seen very weak. And basically, they say remove that, do not have it go through that whole process with the president going into the parliament. And you know, I have a problem with that. And I'll tell you one of the reasons I have a problem with that. Because I suspect, as they would have done, they would have looked at other instances where perhaps people felt a wrong was done. So they're trying to correct a wrong.
Yes.
But I don't know if they read this case I read. I read a case. I think the name is Mirage versus, but it's not the Ravi, it's not the normal Mr. Mirage, it's another name. But the point was, they took the Police Service Commission to court and won, because what they wanted to do was they wanted the Minister of National Security to decide when a new police commissioner would be advertised. Two, that the Minister of National Security would select the firms that would go through the process of who is suitable. And when they have finished their exercise, they would then send on their list to the commission to work on a list that they would have obtained from this so-called independent HR firm and give it to them. Absolutely, they lost. That's the thing. So you see, I don't have any confidence in that, because all that was, in my respectful opinion, was trying to give back the power to the Prime Minister through indirect means. So I cannot agree with that at all, and I do not think that the rationale was strong. So that's two I dealt with. With the question of the referendum, it's dealt with on page 88 of the report. They have they do not support, if you could pick it up, that'll be good, but I have it on page 88 of their report. They do not support the referendum. They said there is strong popular support for instituting referendum. The challenge is, and people don't appreciate it in this country, apparently. He says, trying to build a system of representative, responsible government. Oh yes, that's not what a lot of people feel. Whereby, that's just showing a bias. Why do you think they asked you to do the constitutional reform? Because you don't. Anyhow, whereby the elected government makes policy and decisions. Referendums could have the effect of undermining government policy and program. Maybe that's a good thing. Sometimes, not in all cases, but sometimes. I understand they want the government to operate, but you need oversight over them. So they said, this is the bottom line. They gave all the reasoning, the current reality of Parliament. We do not, the demand for a referendum doesn't serve us. And so they limited it to they did not say you cannot have it at all, but they limited it to very few circumstances in which one could initiate a referendum. I'm not sure that referendums are there about a democracy. A referendum is an opportunity for the people between an election to give their views on something of national importance. They did set out the examples which they felt that would require or should require the use of a referendum, but essentially they did not support it. Now, I already said, I don't know if I said it on the show, but Hope, yes, I'll mention Hope because Hope was part of the consultation, so I don't think that I can incorrect to mention a recommendation that Hope had made. They did say, and there's a good reasoning, they said the referendum has failed in Jamaica. I don't think they tried it, but maybe they did. But they tried it in Grenada, and it failed. They tried it in, I think it's in Vincent, and it failed. No matter how popular Dr. Ralph Gonsalves is, and he is popular. So they tried it in these countries, and when he asked a referendum to abolish what he brought forward was going to the CCJ instead of the Privy Council. That was the referendum that they put out. Right? And it failed abysmally. Now, Hope has said perhaps one of the things that should have been done, maybe the threshold is too high, because a lot of people know the insult to anyone, including even myself, as long as you don't realize the importance of certain referenda, And he said it failed miserably. And of course, as a head of government, you don't want to go out there and do that because it's a kind of a mirror on your likability.
But
they are against it.
It could cause your administration to seem to be falling out of favor or losing popularity.
This is what they said. They said it could cause government policy to be undermined. It could reflect some MPs do not serve their constituencies well. It could be used, it could be overturned by the courts because of unconstitutionality. That is what they use. Not such weak arguments. What they could have done, which I thought was a more reasonable thing, is say if you want to say, let's have the threshold not be too high, because that was part of the problem in those countries. And that's what Hooper said. Don't make the threshold too high, be careful when you use it. Right? But don't say that you're going to be against it, but they're against it, except in very limited circumstances. Another one that I would want to mention was, I don't think anybody argued at page 88 of their thing on the fixed election date. You'll find I don't think they think it's right, and they give a good reasoning.
And it seems as though everybody except the PNM Special Convention.
Yeah, but it's just
nobody. I have not heard of any other.
But their reasoning was so strong. And I'll read it out. The reading is strong. Because remember, I said I would deal with some of these matters, and it's page 88. They said that Section 81 of the Constitution gives the Prime Minister the power to dissolve Parliament at any time, quote unquote. This power is a feature of the British electoral system which we adopted. It is an arbitrary power which can be abused, giving the incumbent party of the Prime Minister an advantage over electoral rivals. A fixed date for general elections would be consistent with fairness, allowing all political parties as well as the private sector to plan their affairs, knowing precisely when an election date is due, like in America, November the 4th, it always will be. First Monday in November, I should say. The fixed date should also take into account the most favorable time of year in respect of weather conditions. Because if you do it in rainy season, a lot of people may stay home because the place flooded out. Right?
Or you might actually have things flood out and then it causes the election to,
Right? So, or you will not get the turnout you should get, because they did mention that too. It also should take into account school and university exams, and it should also take place proximity to the end of the fiscal year. So they gave their reasons, a very valid reasoning.
Yeah, particularly the end of the fiscal year part, when you have to go like in the middle of the process of spending government money.
I think that is a good one too, you know. And because this is the thing, this is what they said, no, that I had to not to agree with. They did say that the general voting turnout, I wrote it down somewhere, was around 63%, and then it fell at the last election to 58%. And they said it was, they painted it on, well, they're not to say they're not right to say this at all. The COVID might have been a deterrent in 2020. But I did look at reports from way gone by, and the average was in the 63, 64%. It didn't just happen with COVID. COVID is not an outlier.
No, but they said maybe the 58 was
No, but what I'm trying to tell you is
it's not big enough.
It's not only that. It is that when you go back to other election years, the average was always in the 60-something percentile.
Right.
So to use the argument that the reason of it dropping to 50% based only on COVID, you had and they themselves said, and Wooding himself said, there had been a decline because there's an apathy in the society. You can't just put it on COVID. That's what I'm trying to say.
Because 60-something% is not.
And it was a general. If you go back on the EBC report, you will see over the years it stayed 64, 63% as a general.
One thing though, so when is you're Minister of Finance, so I'm going to put you on the spot.
Serious?
When is the end of the government's fiscal year exactly?
Well, the latest they can take it is the end of October.
Because the reason why I say that is, I don't know if the requirement of of doing it in the dry season and getting it to the end of the fiscal year lines up very easily.
Right.
That's the one thing.
Yeah, but you see what happened with that is 5 years. No, I think you can extend it for 3 months, I'm not sure. Right? So if your last elections was held around that time, then you're already setting it up for the 5 years of all.
Well, I mean, I think to some extent, if a change like this were to happen, if an election date was to be fixed, I don't think the last government under the old system having an extra couple of months is a big deal, or a couple of months less or a couple of months more, because you could just say, as per the new change, this will be the next date of election.
And we have taken these things into account. Listen,
it's just that
is not static.
Right.
And we cannot take an approach where we are afraid of our own selves. If it is a good reasoning, if it's bad reasoning,
now, so with
it's
that
bad
said,
reasoning.
which one would you prefer to prioritize?
What?
Whether or the end of the fiscal year? Because the end of the fiscal year implies somewhere around September, October, whereas dry weather, you're looking at February, March, April, May.
I do not believe it is fair to the public. The weather is an important thing for Trinidad because we have a lot of flooding, and we see it all the time.
Yes,
and
it doesn't
a lot
take
of
much.
And having been in the politics, as they say, as an MP, I do know getting people, especially, we have a larger aging population than we had when Wooding did his report.
Right.
Right? Much larger.
Right.
That is what this report said, okay?
So
And
it might be better to do it in the dry season.
So I'm saying that is a consideration. And what is also a consideration, I do not think it is, fair may not be the correct word, but I do not think it keeping with good governance and all the things that the preamble says, which they did mention in their report.
Right.
In all fairness.
The current
report. They didn't quote it, but they did reference it and see that was a kind of a guidepost. But I think Wooding Committee was the guidepost for them, to be honest. And nothing wrong with that. I mean, Wooding did a good job.
Well, they were guided by the guideposts, and they got the guideposts from the guideposts.
Yeah, and nothing's wrong with that.
Yeah,
I'm not criticizing
right,
that.
to be fair, why reinvent the wheel?
Yeah, and
if it was good, then it's...
Not only that, it's helpful.
And also, it's not like they could have a different opinion on some of these things.
They didn't cut and
right,
paste.
but it's not like they could have a different opinion on some of these things for it to be correct.
Just to be different.
Yeah, the guidepost is what it is. Like, on that alone, you can't change that.
Right, so you can look at it and I say we're not in 1970 anymore. There's ageism, there's a difference in the ethnic composition. A lot of things have happened since 1974 and thinking things through. Okay, so we can't be stuck, else we won't develop as a country. So I think, but what they do not support, they do not support the referendum except for very limited cases. I wrote it down somewhere, but I can't find it. One of the things they also did is they dealt with the ombudsman, but they weren't very clear. If you look, if you want to find it, it's also at 4.186. I think it's on page 92. So you see, I did write down my thing because I have this advantage, ombudsman, right? Mm-hmm. It starts at 4.185 actually. Okay, one of the problems I had with the ombudsman argument, they did say the ombudsman supposed to, that was one of the few things from the Wooding Committee that was actually taken on board in the 1976 Constitution, okay? Because what his role is really to act as an investigative body to look at administrative injustice by public officers in their abuse of their government position. And what they are saying, and they didn't say much else. That's what bothered me a little bit. All they did say is that, well, as far as you can read it, so you'll be able to add in anything I'm not saying, but what they more or less focus on is that, they also, this is the ombudsman. They did say they should rename it the Commissioner for Public Justice, but they didn't really go into any kind of, which they did with the Auditor General. They spent more time on saying, which were good points in relation to the Auditor General. But when it came to the Ombudsman, they recognized, this is what they recognized, see, a lot of people don't even know there's an Ombudsman. And a lot of people don't even take on the ombudsman.
Yeah.
And the ombudsman don't even really have any power.
I really don't know. Yes.
Right? He doesn't really have any power. So, but what I found, it has investigative powers. But what I found, this is what I found it was weak then. So now they're ending thing after having looked at Woodin and Ellis and so on. I'm waiting to see them come with a good recommendation. If you realize that's the problem, come up with something good. So their last paragraph, which would be on the top of page 93.
Yes.
In order to reflect its constitutional mandate, it is suggested that the Ombudsman be redesignated the Commissioner for Public Justice. With a parliament comprised of full-time legislators and an enhanced committee system, the report of the Ombudsman will be taken more seriously and acted upon. Committee endorses the view of the Ramadan Committee. That's really weak. Really, really, really weak. If you're really serious about telling how important, because they said that,
when they say committee system, this is judicial committees, this are joint select committees.
Yes, I think that's what they're talking
so
about.
My thing is, so you're saying that we will make changes elsewhere and somehow magically that will make this
name change.
No, not just that. We're going to make changes outside of the Ombudsman. We'll just change his name and make changes in other places, and that will somehow make his office more effective.
But what they're trying
I
to
don't
say,
even think they have put enough.
Let me be fair to them.
Okay.
Because in their opening paragraph, they did recognize that's one of the few things that was adopted by the from the Woodian Committee. They said the Ombudsman, who is an officer of Parliament, has a restricted mandate to investigate administrative injustice arising from the act or mission of any government department, including local government authorities. Where the complainant has the option of redress through the court, the Ombudsman cannot investigate unless the Ombudsman takes his reason and expect the complainant to do so. The Ombudsman has the power to summon witnesses, etc. I think by putting him on various committees gives him insight into what is going on and therefore strengthen his position. But it's still not good enough. Though.
I'll say this. First of all, the name change seems very Orwellian to me. Commissioner of Public Justice.
Some real strong words there.
Yeah, because
I better go back and look at my literature book.
No,
what farm is that? What farm is that? Animal farm?
Yes, exactly. The Commissioner of Public Justice. That just
doesn't mean any different.
It doesn't. No, but it's like titles like that. I kind of feel a little how about it.
I don't find they recognize he has limited investigative powers, inadequate staffing, and they even said moreover many people appear to be unaware of his existence or rule. So I don't think they dealt with that fairly. So they made
because to some extent, okay, now people might see the name change. That doesn't mean his powers are be able to be exercised more effectively, and it might just turn into one big joke.
But that's not the point either. Even if you change the name, the fact that I don't even know of him, you change the name not going to make one bit of
what
difference.
does he do?
And what is he capable of doing?
And that's why I say Orwellian, because this sounds like somebody who's in charge of your propaganda, who's in charge to ensure political
it's true.
Loyalty, right? This sounds like a Politburo party official.
Yes.
If that's what it means. The name does not, the idea of the name change would be we want to make it something that people would easier understand what his task is. This doesn't necessarily do that.
No, it does. It did not. So, and we are being fair, I think.
They could have had more detail in this part of it.
We didn't have any detail at all. And let's put it this way. If you're trying to convince me about that, you need to just go back and reframe it. And this is how you were able to justify other things. For example, you justified, they fixed well, I don't agree with them with the Commissioner of Police. That looked like, I do not agree with that at all.
I want to go back there because...
I don't agree with that at all.
Because there have been perceptions of political interference in the Police Service Commission's work.
Yes.
So they want a clear delineation of roles.
Yes.
My only thing is, I don't get how, and we just go to the veto.
But that's what he did with...
I'm not sure how going back to the veto.
Exactly.
Because the problem is, in theory, what they said is, and this is why I think it falls apart particularly, well, the Prime Minister has to give the reasoning why he vetoes to the Commission. But I'm like, hold on, stop. If there's undue political interference, because we don't know. We don't know what the reasoning is. So to us, it still looks like the Prime Minister has a political interference on the Police Service Commission.
And that's one thing he felt strongly about. So you see, when this report is set, and you see something like that, oh God, you start to wonder.
Now I want to ask, you said the part about the Auditor General, which I believe you were referring to the one right after the Ombudsman. Yes. You said that there were recommendations there that were, because I am reading other things.
I mean, there were strong recommendations.
I am reading other things, I think, on page 76. So We're in two different parts.
Okay, so I
also
want you
about
to
the
go to
Auditor General.
93 because
So
it's
yes,
all over.
I'm there. So let's go with what you have first.
Right, so what I think they said, so let us say that thing about the veto thing, a certain nonsense, and to me, the catering
Well,
to
the
Prime
justification
Minister.
kind of doesn't
right.
really
Also, too, they
fully
said
track.
they do not agree with us going, joining Human Rights, let me just say the Human Rights Commission. They said we have enough checks and balances in our system that there's no need.
But
because remember the death penalty, persons use the Human Rights Commission as a stalling point for the 5-year period. But they're saying that the Equal Opportunity Commission, the Ombudsman, the Integrity Commission, the various tribunals, the Police Complaints Authority, Supreme Court, all of these are sufficient investigative and other powers to deal. We don't need a Human Rights Commission to deal with human trafficking, the abuse of children, extrajudicial killings. That
Right.
really
Okay,
issues.
I would agree with that, except all of those entities to be the actual checks and balance of those situations, they're all ineffective.
Exactly.
And there isn't enough that I have seen so far, and in case of the Ombudsman, we don't see it after reading what they have, to say how they will make it more effective.
And guess what? A Human Rights Commission is international, so you're going to have to answer to somebody besides those in here, in this country.
Well, right.
No, and that's good, because human trafficking is trafficking to people from other countries.
No, I could understand that in theory, we should have the bodies already in place and the laws already in place, but they're not being practiced or implemented effectively. Okay, on to the
so they
Auditor
on to that. So they did make a good point, if I could get you to help me with that too. When they talked about the Auditor General, they said the Auditor General, which is true, they said, look at the second sentence in 4.187. So you see people listening, I hope they might have their own up. It remains, however, more, that's talking about the Office of Auditor General. You know, they said more than the 1970s conception of backward-looking financial auditing. And that's the key. Because by the time the Auditor General gave a report and did all what they had to do,
yeah, the horse already bolted from the barn, essentially.
Right.
How do we unring the bell?
Right, so they did say this. They said in order to avoid that, they did make some strong recommendations. But you can read it out. Do you want to read it out?
Well, I'm not.
It's 4.187. After I said it's backward-looking financial auditing. So what they're telling you have to modernize the system. And what they're saying is you have to empower the Auditor General, enable her to conduct an all during the year then.
Okay.
You understand?
Okay, yes.
Or not at the end, to conduct performance or value for money audits. Right? She said the Wooden Committee and this Rambara Committee made a recommendation in this regard. In addition to conducting performance on efficiency audits, large government projects involving information and communication technology as well as large infrastructure projects should involve the Auditor General at an early stage in the process with best practice. I think that was an excellent recommendation.
EFCL should have been audited all throughout. The Coast Guard should be audited all throughout. The Port Authority.
Yeah, what they also said, we also believe, and I know that have to be something to do with our wonderful Prime Minister of Finance. I believe, I may be wrong. We also believe that the Constitution should clearly provide that the Auditor General should have access to all financial records of public bodies, including the Board of Inland Revenue.
Yes.
Together with enhanced powers of a parliament of full-time members who can call witnesses and investigate matters of concern.
She just has these powers, right?
Yeah, these are all the powers they want to give the Auditor General. Together with enhanced powers of a parliament of full-time members who can call witnesses and investigate matters of concern relating to public expenditure. The accountability framework for the public sector should be significantly improved. Look what else she can do, or he can do. The Auditor General Department should benefit from the proposed reform and decentralization of the Public Service Commission, which devolves responsibility to permanent secretaries and heads of department for recruitment, appointment, not the president anymore, recruitment, appointment, transfer, and promotion of staff. And I think one of the other things they said, democratic government always also require the government be effective and even efficient. This means delivering services in a timely fashion without wasting resources. Corruption is a major cause of misuse and waste of resources today. There's nothing in the Constitution which requires and imposes on the institutions of state the duty to provide effective government. Therefore, we have recommended the inclusion of this duty in the directive principle of state policy. They are very strong, and they go on and on, but we got the picture.
So there's another part earlier on, 4 point, yes, page 75, 76. They reference the issues, the conflicts between the office of the DPP and the executive.
Oh, yes, I want to
the
do
conflict
that.
between the executive and the auditor general. This
Yeah,
has to be the last point. So I just
Okay,
want to skip to
point.
the end. I just want to skip to the end.
Last point.
4.107, good governance of the fourth branch institutions like the Auditor General, the DPP, etc. begins with making the right appointments to these positions. While these institutions are independent in the conduct of their functions and the Constitution, they must also be accountable for the integrity and for performance. Accordingly, part of the routine reporting to Parliament, the Constitution should make provisions for the removal from office of any of these fourth branch office holders, subject, of course, to due process where the office holder willfully violates any provisions of the Constitution, behaves in such a way as to bring the office into hatred, ridicule, or contempt, behaves in a way that endangers the security of the state, is unable to perform the functions of their office because of physical or mental incapacity, or performance of their duties is so unsatisfactory as to justify their removal from office. I wonder who determines that last one. The provisions of Section 136.8-136.11 are largely adequate to address official misconduct. However, provisions are made for the process of removal to be triggered by public complaints and petition to the President concerning the office holder.
Now,
I wonder if that's...
I will deal with some more next week because there's a whole thing on DVP and actually a recommendation from the audit, I think it's Woodick, I thought it was here, that the AG should not be a member of cabinet. He should not be a political appointee, and have a Minister of Legal Affairs, and his duty to set it out. His duty is to advise the Auditor General, the Ombudsman, the government, and he should not be a cabinet member, he should not be a politician. Make a Minister of Legal Affairs. Now, I don't know if that's Wooded
Because
or
my concern is, if you want to make it easier to remove them, and the various frameworks to do so are too subjective, that could be a problem. But to be fair, if they want to give them more power, you also potentially need to tighten, there's always a compromise with how much control and accountability and oversight you should have over these independent office holders before the independent part of the office becomes lip service.
He should be an advisor. He should not be cabinet. He should not be a politician. Have a Minister of Legal Affairs, because he's supposed to be holding his hand, even which clearly he has not been able to do from a power. Exactly.
So I mean,
we covered a lot.
We kind of, that last part there was kind of just the bullet points of it. But folks, we take a quick break. When we come back, we open before 9.
Oh my God, is that the time?
No, that's not the time. That's not the time. That clock is wrong. But we're still kind of late now to take the break, but we'll come back and open before 9. Stay tuned.
Transform your home with PCU Plus. From stylish furniture to the latest appliances, we have everything you need to create your perfect space. At PCU Plus, we offer fair prices and affordable financing options that are cheaper than hire purchase agreements. With convenient locations in San Fernando, Tobago, Arima, and our lifestyle showroom in Barataria, you're never far from the best deals. Visit PCU Plus today and discover why we're the top choice for quality furniture and appliances. PCU Plus, quality you trust, prices you'll love. Visit one of our locations or find us online to start transforming your home today.
And we're back here talking about WESN, the show that criticizes everybody across the board because at this point, I don't know if there's any good news to give you, good people. We have the good lady herself, she's here. We're going over some of the recommendations, trying to interpret the verbiage of the work offered. Some of it is quite well done and clear, and they have a lot to offer. Some of it, they kind of leave it up in the air and don't really go into enough details for us to, and therein lies the problems. What are you actually recommending? But with that said, the phone lines are open. You can call and have your say on this and other things. They have stories that I have not gotten to. I understand, and apologies for not having a show yesterday. A bit under the weather. I didn't have a show yesterday. Okay. But with that said, of course, I am here now today. I know we're probably in that back to school time where people are now thinking about the children, the nieces and nephews, the grandchildren, and all of that jazz. And some of you are probably trying to sneak in some vacation time towards the end because you couldn't.
I'm going to say, no, hallelujah, school is opening Monday.
That's what you say?
I don't have to say that. I know mothers who say that.
Well, you see, the problem is mothers are saying that.
Yeah,
as a commuter, I am saying,
well, you know,
darn it.
Well, sorry. You're not going to be sorry for you.
Darn it.
But what I want to say, as you wait, and as soon as we get a call, I will stop. I think what I tried to do with Sean, as we clearly see that we have a good working relationship, is really to not only unpack, to simplify as much as we can. You're not saying me perfectly right about things, but you know, the word constitutional reform is itself a bit, you know, a lot of people, they feel intimidated by the phrase, so they don't feel it can relate to them. So what we were hoping to do, and we're going to do next week, is to continue that, and you all can call in and say what you think about the fixed term, what you think about, you know, the Prime Minister can go up 2, 3, 4 times without let, because I think that's one of the recommendations they made, although, and so on.
Oh, we haven't even got to that.
Right,
yeah,
and then
yeah.
the proposal representative, we're going to go into that in more detail next week because it's really important. The referendum, there's so many things that can change what our constitution looks like. And there were a lot that we didn't discuss, we'll discuss it next week, but feel free to call in and ask a question, seek clarification, and critique it. And we're not going to take it, we're not going to take it personally, we'll all learn from it. And, you know, that is really the intention of the show, at least this part anyway.
Well,
yeah.
I hope so.
You do it all the time, but when I come on and we do a specific topic, is because I try my best.
The key is, some of you viewers, you all watch the show at night, but you all should try and watch the show in the morning so that you could call in. It's unfortunate. Who knows? Maybe in the future we might have to have a live nighttime edition. I don't know if
who will be out here at nighttime?
I tried. Okay, I tried.
You don't know there's crime going on.
That is true. That is true. I can't fault you with that one.
I'm not even in my house late at night. Sorry. I can't trust people.
But with that said, I did wonder, have you seen, I just want to ask, have you seen what's going on with regards to Movie Town and the issues with a state entity and the ownership of Invaders Bay land and all of that? Have you looked into that?
Okay. No, well, I did not get a chance today to use the papers, and the main reason was I was really trying to do my homework
on this.
Yes,
yeah.
Yes, yesterday and today. But, you know, again, call me a cynic, call me jaded. But it seems to me there's someone that wants that Movie Town property, and they're being aided and abetted by those you can guess who it could be. I have my guesses, and I may be entirely wrong, but I suspect they're putting that front page and pushing that because they know it's prime property. And there's some people who can never have enough. They want to own everything in Trinidad. Everything they want to own. When they finish with us, I don't know why they passed the Fair Competition Act, because the Prime Minister clearly doesn't read it or don't understand the purpose or the preamble or the Constitution and all the things that they have. But it seems to me that this has raised this. I don't know what Mr. Leachen's real position is. He is saying that they are exaggerating the amount that he owns. owes. He's saying it's not 10 million, it's more in the vicinity of 5 million.
The dispute is over the valuation because he's saying, I'm just renting the land from you. Y'all didn't develop nothing for me. I'm not renting facilities.
They want him off. They want him. I'm telling you this. Somebody wants it, and somebody who close to the Prime Minister and his colleagues want it, and they're putting pressure to get him off so they can get it. Mark my words.
And there's also a lot
Mark my words. Remember you heard it on the show, eh?
Yes, yes.
Right.
Because I haven't gone there.
No, let me tell you.
That did not come to my mind.
It didn't come to your mind, but you see, when you're
But I will say this, to some extent, the way how things are kind of unfolded in a weird manner, it does kind of make sense.
So let me give you an example. You see, that's what happens when you have been in politics. It's something you call it. They call it and stop talking.
No, I think that was, you rubbed the mic, yeah.
Oh, you know, I remember, I might think a strange thing for me to bring it up now. I remember the period of the big buildings. I knew what was behind it, and I actually met somebody who's a good friend of the family who was a contractor. He said, yeah, we should get a bit work. I said, so the country must suffer whilst you do not have the manpower or the skill sets available to do all the projects that the government is trying to push the country into another direction so that we could take us another level. We must wait until you can do it because you're more important than the country, right? So I knew when they started that big buildings talk, it was fair, that was my view, it was fair that all those offices that they rent to government, the government has to retrofit. Look at the one of them, I think they paid a whole 5 years for the DPP. I saw DPP tell him long time he didn't want that building.
Yeah.
But you see, he's a public servant, so he can't come out and say what he really wants to say. So I will take the chance of saying that I saw he told them, and I saw he told them why, and I saw it have nothing to do with the nut vendors around there.
Yeah.
I saw it have nothing to do with that, right? But that is what they do. When they want to spend your money and then come up, I want to give you talk about who wastes your money. You don't see they after him? They after him in a hard way. They after him in a hard way. So this thing with the movie town, as soon as I saw it, and then I saw it was the Port of Spain, so it's owned by the government, the land. As soon as I saw that, I said somebody wants it, and they're bringing this up. But Mr. Leachin is not a fool.
Derek Chin.
Derek Chin. Why would I say Leachin? Who's Leachin?
I think you're kind of mixing up Lee Singh and...
No, there's a Lee Chin.
Oh, there's a Lee Chin? Well,
but we don't know. But okay.
I don't know.
Okay, but anyway, Mr. Chin, he's no fool, and I know you'll get the best of lawyers to fight them.
Well, they already...
I am saying right now on this television that they are trying to push him off because you will hear in 2 or 3 months now they have a new person there, and that's the person they want in there.
I mean, they already had a court order saying don't interfere with the operations, and they locked them out of they're still locked out of the office.
Who's saying that?
The judge told don't interfere with the managing company of Movie Town's operations. But yet that company's offices are still
Right, because it's better who unfortunately to tell you this. Unfortunately, and look, I better not.
No. What I'm saying is, it seems as though the Port of Spain company, right, is not complying with a judge's order. I'm not too sure.
Yeah, they do what they listen. That is what is behind it.
We have Sugar on a sunny line. Good morning, caller. You're on here. Oh, Professor, the same.
Oh God, Professor, back to me now.
No, it's the same thing. I don't know if it's the same thing that happened Monday is happening today, Professor. Could you call in on the next line? Try calling on the next line, Professor. I'm telling you that, you know. Also,
she better believe
it's funny because there's another court matter that if we weren't having to deal with this, I would also want you to look at, and that's with the Alan Warner situation.
Exactly. I have never seen anything so broad. I don't understand it. I tell myself I don't understand it. No, I tell myself I don't understand it. Something missing. Am I right to think? I'm waiting for when he calls back.
Yeah.
But am I right to think he was quarrying on illegally quarrying?
Well, that's what happened because right. I think the judge, because they have
Frank Rampersad.
Right. No, but they have there's another order
injunction. Okay, so am I right to say he was illegal?
Yes, because I believe Justice C. Prasad said you can't retroactively apply something weeks or a month after the arrest.
And the most bold-faced way, and saying he wanted to lift the injunction so he could get all his expensive equipment and sit down there and to let him start back quarrying. For those 2 weeks, I have never seen something so bold-faced. No AV drilling in that classification. AV drilling. No, the FUL also in that classification. You don't see no shame in the game, you know. No shame.
When you say the FUL, you mean the Brent Thomas?
No, the FUL license for the same Mr. Warner.
Oh.
Right? And I will come and collect it. I have never, I'm talking about directly related to the Prime Minister. How, I mean, it is unimaginable what is going on in this country. I swear, I cannot be, I say I didn't understand it because it was too crazy.
And
somebody
folks,
should go
if it's too crazy for Karen, then you know it's crazy.
No, it's really crazy.
Let's try Shagonas again. Morning caller, you're on here. Good day, without the beeps. Thank goodness.
I read everything on this movie, so that is irrelevant. What is important in any lease, because that matter must have a lease, is what is in the provisions of the lease for reviewing the rent. And nobody is publishing this. The one thing that seemed to make some kind of sense is they said that they reduced the rent during COVID. Now, that may not be due to the lease. That may be because a proper landlord, if you see the whole thing might crash, could do that. But as soon as COVID finished, then the rent would be reverted to what it was.
Yes, but that's not what the complaint is, from what I understand.
Well, from what I read, one of them said that is it.
No,
but that is what I'm telling you. There's so much conflicting things you cannot say except somebody say, well, at least put the provisions in the lease, because talking about who built this and who built that, all that is irrelevant. Right? The question is, at the end of the day, I have known tenants who build the entire property, and after that time the property go to the landlord. Right? But it has to go and read what the lease said.
Yeah.
So that's what I want to make. This constitutional reform. Doctor only makes sure and provided evidence that the whole thing is a farce. Because when he was talking about this thing, which I think is Columbus, I think.
Yes.
He said, you have to worry. We have a majority in Parliament, we could get it passed. If that is going to be the criteria, rather than the reform process, well, then we just wasting time. Any questions, lady and gentlemen?
No, Professor.
Can I give him an answer to the last part? Sure. The last part was a deflection because they got himself in trouble with the Santa Rosa houses for 475 million. And you know, when his good friend NH, this is his good friend, come out and kind of tell us, listen, now you did the first three things right, but you see when it comes to the RFP, you won't comply with that RFP. All of a sudden, the CEO just say we cancel it with no explanation. What you surprised about? They did that with the HC. They did that in 2019 with the 5,000 houses with the Chinese when the Freedom Information JCC went after them, and then we found out what was in the contract and see what our Prime Minister and our government agreed to. So why are you so surprised what they're doing now?
No, I didn't say but what he proved is the whole thing is a farce.
Yeah, yes.
Yes, it is a farce.
Yes.
Thank you. It is a farce. And I think it is time that we as Trinidad, because that's one of the voting committee criticisms of us, he says we are too complacent and we take too much and we do not stand up. In other countries, developed countries, we want to say, they will march for their rights, and they say they have a vigorous private sector, a public that does not accept nonsense, and it is very clear. Just as how they thought they would get away with that Santa Rosa thing, they didn't get away with it. All of a sudden they shut it down. Look what's going to happen with Movie Town.
Professor, I think the connection that Karen is making is that the three ships thing and the majority and we'll push
deflection.
It is a smoke screen. It's a distraction.
No, I know all that. In fact, I proved to you some time ago that the whole HDC and government housing program makes the problem worse. Because the whole thing's supposed to be affordability at housing, and I tell you that the real way to deal with housing, affordability is property tax.
Okay.
You noted it at the time, and I explained to you in detail at the time. Of course, at that time, you had no question.
All right.
Can I just say this the correct thing? A lot of people who own AG houses are renting, therefore they will not pay taxes, and that's why they can't get a mortgage. And that's why they can't do anything for themselves, because they have no asset in which to go to the bank and say, I can get a loan. And secondly, with regard to the steel band thing, if he had really been serious, he's nearly into the 10th year. Why are you coming down? You know why he came up with it? Santa Rosa.
Well, no, and because
because all we're talking about is that steel band.
Somebody put it on social media. So one of the theories is
somebody
he
is
saw
the
it.
PR people.
No. The thing is, he saw it. He saw it. He saw it, and he said, I could distract him with this.
No, his PR people told him, you are too innocent.
No. You're not understand what I'm saying.
I heard what you said.
He is trying to take advantage of someone's intentions for his
and
own
that
ends.
someone, maybe someone that they had do it.
We have San Fernando on the line. Good morning, caller.
You've been real innocent.
By the way, the Wedding Commission wasn't the only people that said some of those things you said. I've been saying that for the last 3 years. San Fernando, I'll get to that. San Fernando, good morning. You're on here.
Good morning, Sean. Good
morning,
Karen.
Morning.
Karen, now that you have gone through a lot of the reports of from the commission, but some of it. Now, if you go back to the mandate that was given to the commission, those 4 parameters, do you think that report, thus far as what you've read, has met the mandate? Because I don't think so.
Right, and I would say to this, why, and I can't answer you honestly about what the 4 mandates are right now, but what I will say is, you get what you asked for. And there were a lot of things which I was going to bring up. If you're going to do this whole thing about the way you elect your president, what does it matter how you elect the president? The president has no more power than she had before, right? And I don't want to go on, maybe next week I will look at it, but what I will say is, you don't understand this government, I serve with them, I serve with a lot of them, And one thing they are good politicians. I will just tell you that. And you have to be one step ahead of them. That's all you have to be.
And that is why this, as far as I'm concerned, this report needs to be rejected.
Yes.
And I think, okay, it's 200-something pages. I would have expected that over a period of, let's say, 4 weeks, every Sunday, they publish part of it. And the state pay for it to publish part of it in because it's a lot in the newspaper, like a little supplement every week in the newspaper until the population can get their hands on it. The widest possible portion of the population can get their hands on it and take a look and read this thing. Because as far as I'm concerned, it did not meet the mandate that was set out for the commission. Have a good day.
I actually will put 2 and 2 together. You said you get what you asked for?
Yeah, but also to be fair, and you see someone I'm mixing them in with this committee, But I think what they said is they did the consultation and so on, and then they were preparing a booklet, and they had a tremendous amount of challenges because the intention was to take the booklet and disseminate it for public
consumption.
Comment. Yes, and public comment. So I don't want to be unfair, and who I'm not mixing it up with Woodin. I think it is this committee, so
let me just say this. You said you get what you asked for, right?
You get what you asked for.
To me, the 4 terms of references
are
as follows. It's in the quality of the writing is consistent. Let's just put it that way. Let's put it that way, right? Because I'm reading it and I'm not really, like the most important one is like the one on the ombudsman. It's just a very small paragraph that doesn't really go into enough detail.
And I want to tell you something. I'm sorry, but I can't help saying I still am a politician because I think like a politician. And I am telling you, what they do is distract. They say, oh God, you know, everybody's saying we're doing the constitutional reform. Elections come out next year. Come, quick. Let's put somebody together.
Number 10.
Right? And then the seal ban. Oh God, let me come up with that fast.
That's the other thing.
Because we don't want to talk about Santa Rosa.
The terms of reference.
Hold on.
The terms of reference is in part saying how they're supposed to guide the discussion. They have nothing to do with the steel pan. He just came out of nowhere.
But he came out
That's
of
the point.
it after Santa Rosa.
Right. So
and
we have over.
People tell him.
We have over. And like. We have
what
over.
Like thing.
Good morning, caller. You're on here. We're on the time, caller. Morning, you're on here.
We're not fighting, eh?
Morning.
Good morning, Mr. Teacher. Sean.
Yes.
I want to respond here because I want to tell you something that you're not aware of.
Sure.
Right? Let me give you the history of the police and noise pollution. Let me give you the history. It's a 20-something years history.
Yes.
The first time noise pollution raised is from Tobago. All right? When people call the police used to say, we can only talk to the bar owner, we can't do nothing.
Yes.
That went on for years. And then it changed to, well, when we go and talk to them, there's loud music. And then that changed, Sean, when a certain gentleman Googled the laws of Trinidad and Tobago, and he saw the stolen piece, and he saw creating a public nuisance. This person called into the tape, spoke to the inspector, asked him, what is the difference between the stolen piece and creating a public nuisance? And he was told, creating a public nuisance is if you have a situation with music and stuff. So I asked him, I said, listen, why has no one said this before? I said, you all were telling us for years that you all can't do anything. No, all of a sudden, when I bring to you a law that has always been there, you now telling me that you want to be used for that. Further to that,
caller, I think parting time is not all police officers know the law.
I would call back on this.
Sure, we're out of time. We're out of time. But caller, I hate to say this, but my eventual conclusion.
Giving me a cut here, but I want to just tell you, those things are even in your lease. Anytime you do a lease, there's always going to be something about disturbing the peace.
With that said, though, I think it's too ingrained in our population. We tolerate it too much, and people get away with it too easily. I think that's the case, and I think the police have conformed to that modus operandi
and we wonder why. Not all of them, but you have to.
So
you just have to wonder.
Caller, I don't fault your frustration on this issue.
Yes, true, we do.
Because I understand it, but I think unfortunately there needs to be a big shift in society. With that said, thank you to the callers. Thank you, Karen, for joining me. And I'll just say this: I agree with the Wedding Commission with regards to we being too complacent. Because I have said it about children being murdered in the country from the moment.
But they gave you reason. Next week when we come back, in all fairness, he will give the reasons, and I think we have to bear that in mind. Not that we should, but I'm just saying that's part of the size of our country.
With that said, folks, make today a good day, as my colleague Mr. Shah always says. Remember your allegiance to the Republic and to each other. Stay safe out there. Be mindful of dengue. It is unfortunately there. We will see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.
WESN.
The home of Caribbean content is growing, and we welcome you to be a part of the #1 platform for young personalities who are driven to make a positive impact in society. As we continue to reach every corner of Trinidad and Tobago through our daily broadcasts, our social media pages, or through our 75+ digital billboards across the nation, contact us to learn about our competitive rates via marketing at wesncc.com or call us at 628-5835. WESN Content Capital, television with a difference.
You are watching Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. Just give an overview of what exactly is that split arrangement.
Nah, you don't need to register nothing. You don't need. We can do that another time. But then it becomes a hit, and then everybody starts to want to claim.
The laws that predate
many of the independent countries' constitutions are going to be those colonial laws.
We know there are an infinite amount of circumstances that would lead to a murder.
I have a great idea and, I have a great concept, but until it's actually expressed, it does not become intellectual property.
Accomplishments or targets of a forensic accountant is to quantify what may have been lost.
They believe in different criminals and we manipulated the law and we exploited the system.
A responsible journalist will reach out to the person who they have the information on for a comment.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
We are tackling the hard-hitting topics, some controversial topics, some topics we sweep under the rug. You don't always have to forgive in a relationship for it to move forward.
If it is you are in a situation where you forgive the person, but to the detriment of yourself, what are you really doing?